On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing round two of Jerome Powell's testimony, this time before the Senate Banking Committee. Pulte's got a new directive on cryptocurrency. That's not the national home builder, but the FHFA director. New cryptocurrency rules could be coming to you. New home sales in today's hot sheet, as well as weekly unemployment report. It's Thursday, June 26, 2025. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Live from Connecticut. What a kind of a lot going on week here, even though we're heading into holiday next week. I know there's a lot of people checking out. Maybe you're vacationing or about to go on vacation. Totally cool. I got it. Steve from Naples, my good friend Steve. I know it's a beautiful day down there. Every day's a beautiful day there. I'm up in Connecticut. Some people are going to start checking out. Summer gets slow. I get it. There's still a lot going on. I'm glad we're paying attention to it. I'm glad you are too. Let's get into it. All right. First, we've got Jerome Powell's round two here. Yesterday, we covered his testimony before members of the House, of the Banking Committee with the House. Today, it is the Senate Banking Committee. We pulled two questions. We pulled the transcript of all this stuff. We pulled the transcript of BAM, try to figure out where the mentions of housing are, see if there's any, new information, see if there's any differences in what Powell has said in the past and what he's saying today, looking for those little drops of information that we can use to kind of maybe better predict what's coming or better educate our customers and clients. There was two questions in the Senate Banking Committee. Usually round two, second day, it's a lot of repetitive. He's got to stay consistent or he's going to look like a flip-flopper. Not that he hasn't done some flip-flopping in the past, but he doesn't typically want or prefer to look like a flip-flopper. So let's jump in here, Haley. We've got the first question coming in that I wanted to cover from Minnesota Senator Tina Smith, and talking about some of these climate-driven disasters and how that impacts insurance costs and what that's doing to housing affordability. I was just chatting with somebody last night, in fact, about Florida's inventory. And, there's downward pressure on prices in Florida, particularly Southwest Florida right now on home prices. And the first thing he said to me, really smart guy, owns multiple businesses, owns a place east coast of Florida, but kind of just something uses, a wife uses it. He uses it a little bit, but, he's up here in the Northeast. He focused on continuing to build his businesses, et cetera. Says to me, oh, well, Florida prices got to be going down because of insurance. And, there's some insurance and HOA things and issues, obviously, on the condo market. Weakest market, in the country is some of the shoreline Florida condo market stuff, totally. But when you look at Florida as a whole, it's more driven by downward pressure on price by inventory than necessarily this rising insurance cost. It's an overbuilding in the Sun Belt states, and national home builders don't want to build in the Midwest or the Northeast to the same degree that they want to build in the Sun Belt states. It's an easier build for them, better weather, better migration patterns. But not everybody's going to move to Florida. Not everybody's going to move to Texas. So there may be a little bit of a miscalculation there on national home builders. It's easier for them to build, easier regulations, etc. But the mainstream media would definitely have you believing that prices are all dependent on, these rising insurance costs, and pricing going down is only related to insurance or only related to climate disasters. And not the case. I look at Florida, it's way more about inventory than it is insurance and climate to me. So Senator Tina Smith talks about this climate-driven disaster fueling higher insurance costs and making housing less affordable. Let's listen to the question and then the answer from Jerome Powell.
This is what's happening.
Thank you. I want to follow up on a question I asked you the last time you were before the committee. I asked about the impact of severe weather events, otherwise known as climate change, on home insurance costs. And you testified that, I think you said, if you fast forward over 10 or 15 years, there are going to be regions of the country where you can't get a mortgage because of the, can't get a mortgage because of the impact of the challenges of insurance companies just not being able to provide that. Since February, when I asked you that question, home insurance rates have continued to climb. A recent analysis about climate risk from First Street found that financial burdens from severe weather are driving up household costs and triggering increased mortgage defaults. Now it's at about 8% now, but they project that by 2035, 30% of all foreclosure losses would be related to climate impacts, which is pretty stunning. Now, I realize this is a complicated issue because insurance is regulated primarily at the state level, though there are exceptions. Flood insurance and terrorism insurance are exceptions. But I wonder if you would comment on this. I'm thinking a lot about what impact this has on housing costs, which is a big component of inflation and a place where housing costs are rising higher than the general inflation rate right now.
Many things are driving up housing costs.
That's true.
It's of course mortgage rates, but it's also zoning costs and things like this for properties that are near the water. Particularly, for example, we spend some time down in Florida. Property insurance just gets more and more and more expensive, and to the point where it also almost makes sense to self-insure, and that's because of just big losses. Companies are just putting that in their models, and they're charging what they need to to charge to make a return. And if they can't get that, then they'll leave that state. So that seems to be what's happening.
I know I'm out of time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. So what Powell said at the top, he obviously didn't elaborate further. And often we see this with Jerome Powell when it comes to housing. It's not his mandate from Congress. If Congress actually, Senate or the House actually wanted the Fed to have a bigger, focus on housing for the American citizens, then they'd include it in the mandates that they deliver to the Fed. They mandate that inflation gets to 2% and they mandate maximum employment, yet they ask questions about housing to please their voter base to a person who can't control a lot of it. The only thing he can control is the rate, can't control the insurance cost or, how many storms are brewing up in the Gulf. But he was right off the top. Many things are driving up housing costs. The narrative that Daryl Fairweather, the chief economist at Redfin, and others want you to believe that it's only insurance is ludicrous. I think anybody looking at the last 3 years could identify as the number one thing driving up housing costs for new buyers is the rate to finance the money in order to buy. Okay, it's the mortgage rate. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is obviously the lack of affordable homes, not the lack of inventory across the country, the lack of affordable homes. That's due to a lot of local regulatory disasters. If you're going to use the word disaster, let's look at the local municipalities who have a disaster mindset when it comes to what regulations they have around building. It's very expensive. Why do these national home builders not build in the Northeast where you have the least inventory? Talk about regulation. They don't want to touch it. Okay. So you've got that. insurance, where does it land on the list for me? I don't know that it makes the top 3, 4, or 5 as it relates to current housing costs. It's an issue. It's definitely an issue. I don't listen. I don't have a mortgage on my Connecticut house, and the insurance is ridiculous. And it makes no sense when he talks about self-insuring. It's something you think about. Okay. So insurance cost is high, but it's not one of the main drivers increasing housing costs. I think you look at lack of inventory in certain price points. You look at the cost to finance. Those to me are the top 2. Let me know if I'm off on that, what you think in the live comments. So go to Senator Angela also Brooks, Maryland. Urges Jerome Powell to address the lack of private investment in affordable housing construction. This one's interesting. Let's go to also Brooks here from Maryland.
In another question, in our meeting and in your most recent monetary policy report, you spoke of the long-term challenge of housing supply not meeting demand. And I look at this issue the same way I did as county executive, where I really fought hard to leverage private and public sector dollars to bring more housing to communities that needed it. Maryland has a shortfall of nearly 100,000 homes, and the pathway to build wealth is therefore narrowing. So studies have estimated that of the over $200 billion invested annually in housing in recent years, only a fraction supports affordable homes for working class families. So would you speak to the need to better incentivize private investments into affordable housing construction? I'm working with the private sector and nonprofit stakeholders on legislation now, but just wanted to know if you could comment on that.
So I would say this: interest rates are slightly restrictive at this point, modestly restrictive, and that is weighing on economic activity in the housing market sector. But you're really talking about a different problem. It's not one that the Fed can really address, and that is we have a longer run housing shortage. So many other advanced economy countries have this too, and it's not our tool. Our tools don't really work to affect that. It's really elected people, and you saw this as county executive. It's things that the legislature can do that can really address that. Not us. It's not about interest rates.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
so there's things that the legislature can do. The local, municipal, like, hey, everybody in the Senate, wake up. If you want to, you can impact this issue more than Jerome Powell can. Okay. Here's the problem with both on the left, both on the right, the Senate, and the House, Congress. Here's the problem with Congress. Jerome Powell, back at the beginning of the last administration, says this is your last chance to print money. Use COVID as an excuse. Here's $2.3 trillion. You need it. Print it. I'm not going to be able to print any more money in the future. Okay. Shoves money down their throat. They take it like the little kids that they are. You give a little 2-year-old, 3-year-old a lollipop, they're going to take it every single time. A little sugar hit for Congress is no different. $2.3 trillion wrapped around the excuse of COVID, even though COVID was in the rearview mirror for most people with common sense. They took the money. What did it do? It fired up inflation. It was the driver to inflation. Inflation exists when the government prints money, period, end of story. That's what happened. We printed way too much of it, used the excuse of COVID to print more and more and more. And so, Jerome Powell does that on one end, and then the same people that he gave the money to, Congress, who has a mandate for him to get inflation down that he created to 2% and maximize employment, wants to ask him about their problems locally on a housing shortage. Okay. I like where Angela also Brooks from Maryland's head is at. Hey, we need private investment in affordable housing construction No doubt about it. I agree. Love where your mind's at. Okay. She cited Maryland's 100,000 home shortfall. Totally. Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. The biggest issue is affordable housing units in those regions. I got it. You're right also, Brooks. Okay. So how do you incentivize, in her words, private investment in affordable housing construction? You deregulate on the builders. You want more private investments? You make it attractive for them. They're not going to do it out of goodwill. They're going to do it to make profits. Okay? They're going to build affordable housing if they can get a good margin on it. How do you give them a good margin? You give them less regulations they got to jump through. Okay, the federal government can't do that. They can't solve this problem. The federal government can only do so much. Okay, the federal government can't create local deregulation. So for you in Maryland, you've got to do it. You know, the federal government might be able to. Here's one thing we've heard about the federal government. Here we go. Chamath Palihapitiya, billionaire, by the way, smart guy. You like him or not, don't really care. He's very smart. He's endorsing this proposal by Senator Mike Lee. This would direct U.S. government to sell land for the explicit purpose of increasing our housing supply. So this plan is maybe something the federal government can do. The federal government can't get a local city, a local town in Maryland to decrease regulation on builders so that they want to build there. Okay. This particular plan would include the appropriate protections for national parks and the like. Chamath Palihapitiya calls this a no-brainer win-win. U.S. government collects revenues they can direct to paying down our debt while increasing the supply of land. So he's calling for this to be passed now. In the proposal here, it's a one-pager. I like this from Senator Lee. It's like, let's put out something that's a one page. People can read it and understand it. Nationwide shortage of 4.5 million homes and a shortage of 7.1 million affordable and available homes. Boom. You've already got my attention because you're actually addressing the fact that we really have a shortage on affordable homes. It's not just homes, it's affordable homes. That's a better way to describe the issue. The federal government owns nearly a third of the country. Imagine that. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM. Okay. I know that stands for something else in a lot of people's minds, but here it stands for the Bureau of Land Management. Owns 245 million acres, and the Forest Service, FS, owning 193 million acres. Effectively, none of this land can be used for housing. In the West, this means that the federal government is depriving our communities of needed land. We looked the other day at California, over 50% of the sales are over 500,000. Every other region over 50% are under 500,000. Okay, the West has a lot of empty land. Okay. The senator says this deprives the West of needed land for housing and growth. President Trump recognized the connection between federal land ownership and the housing crisis, which is why he pledged to open up portions of federal land for large-scale housing construction. Also looking to tackle this problem, Secretaries Burgum and Turner created the Joint Task Force of Federal Land for Housing. This proposal allows a fraction, 1% of this federal land that we're talking about, they own a third of the country, to be used to build homes. In doing so, it will create jobs and blah, 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 pitch. So this proposal requires the Bureau of Land Management and Forest Services to sell a minimum of 0.5% and maximum of 0.7% of their estates for housing and associated community needs. that'll increase housing, decrease cost. Create process for interested parties, including states and units of local governments, to nominate land for disposal. Prohibits the sale of lands with special designations. Requires receipts from sales to go to the Treasury, and require all conveyance to be completed in 5 years. So there's a deadline there. Okay, you can read more. It's 1 page. You can read more about that on. I've retweeted it on my X at Byron Lazine. So if you want to grab it, it's right there, and you can grab it there. All right, but that federal government might be able to pull some of these things off like that. Maybe a plan like that gets bipartisan interest. Maybe it makes common sense that it would. Common sense doesn't always kind of fit into what's going on in Congress. All right. Here's something the federal government's trying to do to maybe, I think this increases more buyers. So I don't really know what this does for affordable housing, but Bill Pulte, who's the director of the FHFA, made some big headlines yesterday talking about using cryptocurrency as an asset for single-family loans after significant studying and in keeping with President Trump's vision to make United States the crypto capital of the world. Today, I ordered the great Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to prepare their business to count cryptocurrency as an asset for a mortgage. So I'll give this, I guess, a retweet. I'm not necessarily endorsing this, but I'm just reposting it in case you want to easily find that. That'll be on my X account at Byron Lazine. Order issuing directive to consider cryptocurrency as an asset. Listen, I think at this point, the government is recognizing, Bitcoin and certain cryptocurrencies, as an asset. There was just a bipartisan bill. Both Democrats and Republicans came together on saying, hey, these USD coins, these one-for-one crypto coins, need to be recognized by banks. And so this is a further step. There's a lot of traction behind this. This is, if you don't do this, you don't protect the dollar. You want the dollar to be number one, then these USD coins, crypto coins that are backed one by one, kind of got to be in play. Bitcoin's become a player. It's a real thing. It's not just a basement dweller thing. This isn't, this isn't, your 17-year-old's favorite NFT. This is real stuff. And so this is the direction the government's going. So for a buyer being able to use that like they would, any stocks they own in consideration, I think, like stocks, when a mortgage, bank or loan officer looks at that, there's a calculation they use. If it's not liquid, there's not, there's only so many things they can do. Obviously, if you make it liquid, they're going to treat it as cash. But, I don't mind this. I would treat it, kind of a similar way you do equity. A lot of risk in investing in the NASDAQ. So to me, it's no different. I think crypto's proven its viability. It's got a base of investors that aren't going anywhere. And now that the U.S. government is continuing to move further to validate cryptocurrency, and in particular, I think to me, Bitcoin and the likes, this makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't think this bill does anything to solve for housing affordability, right? This creates more buyers, not less. Okay, so if anything, this bill may just, create an increase in homes or an increase in prices because it will, open up more buyers into the market. Crypto had to be liquidated before it could be used in the mortgage process. This new order would potentially use assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum, so BTC or ETH, to help qualify as long as the funds are stored on a U.S. regulated centralized exchange. This is kind of what this whole crypto thing, America becoming the leading crypto country, or President Trump saying he's going to be the crypto president. It's all about regulation. That's why you have bipartisan, both, Republicans and Democrats are getting on board with this. Nobody likes regulations more than Democrats and Republican, old school Democrats and old school Republicans. Love them some old school regulation of the American people. And so this regulates crypto, it creates U.S. regulations. And so in order for this to work for a buyer, you got to have it stored on a U.S. regulated centralized exchange. The banks are going to be able to get involved. The banks were involved in the recent bill that passed that I was mentioning before. Properly documented and compliant with all laws. So they're creating laws around this. Why do they create laws and regulation? So they can make money off it. Taxing the crypto. A lot of money in crypto. Government sees an opportunity to tax it. They're going to take it. Interesting. Don't think it helps affordability, but helps more people potentially access homes. All right. New United States Census Bureau broke story or a report yesterday, as they do every month. This is new residential sales for May 2025. Okay. So here's the new construction houses sold. Here's the trend line moving down a little bit. This is a report for May. In seasonally adjusted annual rate for new construction, new houses sold, running at a clip of 623,000, 507,000 seasonally adjusted for sale. Median sales price 426,000. Okay. Single family houses in May 2025 were at seasonally adjusted annual rate of the 623,000. Okay. This is 13.7% below April. Okay. So sales dropped from April to May on new construction. And there's plenty of it in the Sunbelt states. This is below April's run of 722,000. So significant drop there. And it's 6.3% below the May 2024 run rate of 665,000. So month over month, 13+% drop. Year over year, 6% drop. Inventory and months of supply for builders. You wonder why the builder sentiment is low, and it almost looks depressive when you look at the numbers on how they feel about the future. This is the reason. Okay. You've got a seasonally adjusted estimate of new houses for sale at 507,000. Okay. It's 1.4% above April, month over month, up 1.4%, 8.1% above year over year. And when you look at months of inventory, months of supply, the months of supply is at 9.8 all of a sudden. Okay. 9.8 months of supply in May. May's supposed to be like a little bit of the back nine of the spring housing market. You're maybe on hole, 14 or 15, and you're still feeling good because you got a few holes left, and maybe you're hitting the 19th hole for a beer after. But 9.8 months of supply in May is a huge jump from where we were in April. I get it. April's the peak. April's the turn, but you still got some holes left in May. 9.8 months is what supply has ballooned to in the month of May. That's up 18.1% above April, an almost near 20% jump in months of supply, month over month. It was 8.3 months in April. We got down to about 8 during the spring there, during the early or middle of the spring. It's 15.3% up year over year, where we're at 8.5 months of supply. 9.8 months of supply in new construction, new homes is a severe buyer's market. Just call it what it is. 10 months of supply. If no new homes, no new construction homes came on the market, it would take 10 months at the current sales rate for that inventory to be absorbed. There's more homes coming. This number gets higher, not lower, as we get more into the summer. Okay, sale price is at 426.6, 3.7 above April's number at 411,000, 3% above May. Last year at 414,000. So sale prices are up. But you know what else is up? Incentives inside of those sale prices. So builder incentives have gone up. They want to keep comps up, but the incentives are up. So the margins are shrinking for home builders. 9.8 months of supply for new construction. We've seen that existing home sales are now in the high 4s, nearing 5. On the macro, generally speaking, this country heading more towards a buyer market. Once you get into a buyer market, that downward pressure on price can speed up. All right. One thing we saw for 3 weeks speeding up was initial claims on unemployment. Okay. Department of Labor reports for this week that initial claims on unemployment has dropped from where we were the last 3 weeks. This last week was coming in at 236,000. That's a decrease of 10,000 from the previous week's revised level. All right, 4-week moving average is now 245,000. It's a decrease from 750 from the previous week's revised level, which was 245,750. So 4-week moving average doesn't move much, but a 10,000 drop week over week. We had 3 weeks of nearing and edging towards 250,000. You break 250,000, you get a higher concern, not a bigger higher, but a higher concern from the Fed on where employment is. This shows us, hey, those 3 weeks, we're not at a trend yet. We're not at a consistent trend. It was just kind of 3 weeks of an uptick in data, now back down and moves down 10,000 in a week. So maybe, some of those flashing yellow lights on labor have now been subdued here with this week's report, at least for a week. A lot of the hard data still shows pretty strong labor market. I know there's concerns of it weakening into the future. And, just like, there's concerns that one day the tariff boogeyman could jump out and kind of ruin the economy, but the hard data is not showing it on either yet. 10-year Treasury comes in today at 4.275. Wow. Look at this. The lowest level we've seen in a month. It's the lowest level of the week. It's a move down over the last 24 hours. If we look at the last 3 months, it's kind of in the middle where we've been for the last 90 days. But the trend line here, look at the trend line over the last few weeks. It's on a move down here on the 10-year. Go back to the last 6 months and certainly well off of our peaks from where we were at the beginning of the year. So 4.275 the last few weeks it's really a good number. I'll take it. Let's keep moving down. 6.79 yesterday on the 30-year fixed. It's like all of a sudden, I don't know. Some things are, to me, I know we're talking a lot about uncertainty, but all of a sudden there seems to be some momentum in the economy. There's certainly momentum on some of the Middle East fears. Interesting. You get Middle East issues and usually oil goes up. The last couple of days it goes down. 10 years going down, 30 years going down. We want more, no question about it. But for whatever reason, we got some tailwinds heading in the right direction here. It's interesting. What do investors think is coming in the future? Is the economy going to open up when we get out of the summer? Some of these signals might tell us the future's looking a little bright. Over 25% chance now, according to CME Group, that the Fed actually cuts in the July meeting. It's one of the largest I've seen at this point. This summer is all about a wait and see. You got to get through the summer, but BAM's not going to wait for anything through the summer. We're going to bring heat for you July 16th. Okay, BAM Barbecue, the third major virtual event of the year, completely free. Make sure you register now so you can get your spot. BAMBBQ.live, virtual event July 16th. We have 3 major CEOs bringing the heat. Okay, Ryan Serhant from Serhant Technologies, and as Leo Pereira, EXP CEO, and Scott Harris, Experience.com CEO, myself, and the broke agent Eric Simon are going to be coordinating the discussions, moderating the event, and manning the grill, if you will. here at BAM BBQ. BAMBBQ.live to sign up for that. To wrap up the summer, our only in-person event of the year. It's BAM Camp. It's September 24th, Scottsdale, Arizona. Go to bamcamp.live to get access to that. Luke Acree from Reminder Media, who we did the webinar with yesterday, and obviously big contributor to BAM. He's going to be speaking at this. Did a phenomenal job at the webinar from yesterday. I just want to give a shout out to Luke from Reminder Media. That was a really good webinar. A lot of good feedback from that. All right. If you missed that and you want to access any of Luke's trainings or that webinar replay or any of today's content or every day's content in the hot sheet, just jump into school and grab it there. BAMX members, everything that I share on the hot sheet is always available right inside of the hot sheet classroom. Every single day, we're uploading new data that I use right here, as well as my show notes right down at the bottom every single day, so you can have fresh, relevant information for your conversations with your clients, with your customers, and follow-up text in person. You grab all the last 24 hours relevant information right here underneath the hot sheet replay, hot sheet classroom, as well as all of our new social data each and every single week. Right here in the classroom that says new this week. Okay. So new social templates each and every single week, hyper local templates that are tested and used by our BAM contributors. I think Chris Benjamin using this stuff in his own market. And then Eric puts in some memes for you guys, video scripts, email scripts, as well as newsletter scripts every week, new drops. This is just the latest right here. There'll be a new drop actually coming today. Is it today or tomorrow? I guess it'll be tomorrow. And then next week it's usually on Fridays. Next week it'll be early. It'll be on Wednesdays. So you get the new content each and every single week, along with all of our uploaded courses and content. Of course, the community content and consulting all in one place inside of BAMX. Go to school.com/BAMX, school.com/BAMX to get access to that. On Tuesday, I'll be doing, if you go to the classroom on Tuesday, right before the hot sheet, I'll be doing another live role play, members only, with Tom Toole and Lisa Chinati. So you get access to all of that live consulting that we do right inside of BAMX, school.com/BAMX. All right. Have a great week. We'll have a new walkthrough today, Haley. New walkthrough on the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Separate YouTube channel, Knowledge Brokers Pod. New one up tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great week and weekend before 4th of July. I know a lot of people are checking out. If you're taking a vacation, good for you. Rest, relax, get re-energized for the second half of the year. If you're in grind mode, no opportunity better than now, obviously, to fill the void. There's conversations and home tours are on the decline. You've got an opportunity there to pick up the pieces in your market and gain market share, no matter what position you're in. I'm wishing you the best and have a great rest of the day. We'll see you next time. Until then, toodaloo.